Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Brother and sister, welcome back to Islamic Notes channel. In a developed country known for its higher education, cutting-edge research, and modern lifestyle, Canada, a phenomenon occurred that shocked the world. Thousands of renowned scientists, experts in science, who had long been considered the most rational, logical, and skeptical of religion, chose an unexpected path. They converted to Islam simply because of a single verse from the Quran. The story begins at an international conference held in Ottawa, Canada's capital. The conference brought together scientists from various fields: physics, biology, astronomy, medicine, and geology. The main theme was the mysteries of the universe and the future of humanity. However, amidst the scientific discussions, a Middle Eastern professor, who was also a Muslim, presented something different. Instead of displaying data graphs or complex equations, he recited a verse from the Quran. The verse reads, "We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves, until it becomes clear to them that this Quran is the truth." Surah Fussilat 53. At first, the room was silent. The scientists looked at each other. They were used to hearing science-based presentations, but this time they were hearing words from a holy book more than 14 centuries old. However, what silenced them was not just the text of the verse, but its content. An astrophysicist from the University of Toronto stood up and said, "This verse, it's as if it's speaking directly to us. What we as scientists have been doing all this time is exploring the horizon, the vast, boundless expanse of space, and examining ourselves through biology, medicine, and genetics. And this verse says, all of that will lead us to the truth of the Quran." The discussion unfolded. The biologists compared the verse to modern discoveries about DNA, about how the human body is composed of the amazing genetic code. Astronomers linked it to discoveries about the expansion of the universe and unsolved mysteries of the cosmos. They all saw that this verse was not mere religious rhetoric, but contained universal truths that aligned with science. That day, the atmosphere at the conference changed. Many scientists who had initially been skeptical, even atheists, began to reflect. They were accustomed to relying on reason and experimentation, but now they were aware of something higher than mere logic, a divine truth that transcended the boundaries of science. The phenomenon didn't stop in the conference room. News of the Quranic verse that shocked Canadian scientists spread widely through social media and academic forums. Many scientists then delved deeper into the Quran. They read translations, attended study groups, and engaged in dialogue with Muslim scholars. The more they studied, the more they discovered that the Quran did not contradict science, but rather complemented it. In a short time, there was a wave of conversions to Islam among Canadian academics. Thousands of scientists from top universities, McGill, Toronto, British Columbia, and Alberta, declared their conversion to Islam. Some of them even wrote testimonials. A physics professor wrote, "I spent my life searching for the laws of nature, and finally I realized that all these laws originate from Allah, who revealed them through the Quran." A medical specialist said, "I have studied the human body my entire life. That verse made me understand that the body is not just biology, but a sign of the Creator." A molecular biologist wrote, "I used to think religion was just blind faith, but the Quran is more than just faith. It is the light of truth that is in accordance with reason and science." This profound change shook Canada. A society that had always been secular and modern suddenly witnessed scientists, figures usually considered the most rational, prostrating themselves and reciting the Shahada. International media highlighted this phenomenon. Many called it the spiritual awakening of Canadian scientists. This phenomenon taught one thing, that Allah's guidance can come at any time, through anything, even just a single verse of the Quran. And how great is the miracle of the Quran, capable of penetrating the hearts of thousands of scientists who were once skeptical, but now have become witnesses to the truth of Islam. This massive wave of conversions not only made headlines on campuses, but also gave rise to deeply moving personal stories. Of the thousands of scientists who chose Islam, several stories stand out and have become an inspiration to many. One such example is Professor Alexander Mackenzie, a senior astrophysicist at the University of British Columbia. For more than 3 decades, he has researched the expansion of the universe and written numerous papers that have been cited thousands of times in the academic world. In an interview after converting to Islam, he said with tears in his eyes, "For years I looked at the sky through giant telescopes, counting starlight, measuring the movement of galaxies. Yet I was never satisfied with the answers I found. Everything always raised new questions. But when I heard the Quranic verse about Allah showing his signs on the horizon, I felt as if the Quran was speaking directly to me. I couldn't deny it any longer. I had found the answer I had been searching for. The Creator is real, and He is Allah." Another story comes from Dr. Emily Carter, a renowned surgeon in Toronto who is known for being a staunch atheist. He once publicly stated that religion was merely ancient tales for people afraid of death. However, everything changed after he studied the verses of the Quran about the creation of man from a drop of semen. When he read the interpretation of the verse and compared it with his knowledge of modern embryology, he was speechless for a long time. He believed that the Quran's explanation of the stages of human creation, written 1,400 years ago, was impossible to understand without revelation. Finally, in front of his students at the medical school, he declared the Shahada, Declaration of Faith. "I thought I knew the human body best, but the Quran has taught me that our knowledge is but a speck of dust compared to Allah's knowledge. I knelt, I wept, and I testify that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger." The wave of guidance spread even wider when the story of Dr. Jonathan Blake, a molecular biologist from McGill University, was published. He had been studying DNA his entire life, trying to understand the secrets of life. However, as he delved deeper into the verses of the Quran about human creation and the order of nature, he felt as if he had discovered a master code greater than DNA, God's revelation. "I was researching the genetic code that governs the human body, but I realized there was a greater code, namely the Quran. This is the guidance for human life, not just for the body, but also for the soul." This phenomenon has even led many Canadian universities to open discussions about Islam and science. Large halls that were once filled with seminars on technology and new discoveries are now filled with Quranic studies. Scientists who have converted to Islam are no longer shy about expressing their faith. They pray in congregation on campus, build communities of Muslim scientists, and actively engage their colleagues in dialogue. Western media were initially skeptical, thinking this was a small phenomenon. However, the numbers are surprising. Within 2 years, more than 3,000 Canadian scientists have officially converted to Islam. They include professors, researchers, lecturers, and even Nobel laureates. Many said that Islam gave them a peace they never found in science. A chemist doctor. Sarah Whitmore said, "Science can explain how things work, but Islam explains why we exist. And that's the biggest question of my life." This phenomenon also moved Canadians. Many students, journalists, and even politicians became curious and studied Islam. Mosques were filled with new people eager to learn to read the Quran. A spiritual awakening was taking place in a country previously known for its secularism. Most touchingly, at a large event at the Ottawa Grand Mosque, hundreds of scientists from various universities came together to recite the Shahada. An atmosphere of emotion enveloped the mosque. Tears of joy could be heard from every corner. Scientists, once synonymous with rigid rationality, now prostrated themselves in humility. A Muslim student who witnessed the event said, "I never imagined I would see renowned professors, whom I once considered arrogant about religion, now standing beside me in prayer." This is clear proof that Allah's guidance can penetrate anyone, even the hardest of hearts. The phenomenon of thousands of Canadian scientists converting to Islam because of a single verse of the Quran is proof that the miracles of the Quran will never end. It is not only a book for believers, but also a light that can guide the hearts of anyone who sincerely seeks the truth. The phenomenon of thousands of Canadian scientists flocking to Islam is not merely sensational news. It is a significant sign, concrete proof of God's infallible word, that the Quran is a guide to life that will remain relevant throughout the ages. What happened in Canada reminds us that guidance can come from unexpected directions. Who would have thought that professors, researchers, and scientists, people who have long been symbols of rationality, skepticism, and even rejection of religion, would be subdued by a single verse? A short verse, yet one that holds a power capable of shaking human logic and touching the deepest recesses of the heart. Many people are beginning to realize that science and religion are not incompatible. On the contrary, science is a path to knowing the Creator. Every law of physics, every biological structure, and every cosmic phenomenon is merely a reflection of God's majesty. And the Qur'an, in its simple yet profound language, conveyed all of this long before humans discovered it with modern telescopes, microscopes, and laboratories. The surge of conversion to Islam among Canadian scientists also had a domino effect internationally. Media from Europe, America, and Asia covered this phenomenon. Many became curious and began opening the pages of the Quran for the first time. Some read it out of curiosity, others initially with the intention of finding fault, but ultimately discovered the light of truth. The social impact was also profound. In Canada, people began to view Islam differently. While previously often negatively portrayed through media propaganda, Islam now appeared through new faces: scientists, academics, and intellectuals. People who were usually respected for their intelligence now became ambassadors of Islam through their faith. Sites that were once impossible are now a reality. Renowned professors leading congregational prayers, world-renowned researchers leading tafsir studies, and even laboratories filled with prayer and remembrance of God before beginning research. Islam presents itself not as a barrier to science, but as a light that gives meaning to every research effort. A Canadian Muslim scientist who had recently taken the Shahada, Islamic Declaration of Faith, said with a trembling voice, "We used to search for answers in particles, in the laws of nature, in the vastness of the sky, but all that searching never brought us peace. When we discovered the Quran, we understood. The answer was simple, that all of this was a sign from Allah. We felt like we had just been reborn." The story of thousands of Canadian scientists converting to Islam because of a single verse of the Quran is now a great lesson for humanity. The miracle of the Quran is not something that can only be read, but can be felt. It is not just a book for Muslims, but a book of guidance for the entire universe. And indeed, Allah's promise is true. We will show them our signs in the horizons and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that this is the truth. Surah Fussilat 53. This phenomenon is a sign, an indication that the light of Islam continues to spread. Nothing can stand in the way when Allah wills to give guidance. No power, no logic, and no arrogance can withstand the radiance of the Quran. Thousands of Canadian scientists have now become living witnesses to this miracle. They not only acknowledge the truth of Islam, but also bring hope that the world will see a spiritual awakening combined with intelligence. A new civilization built not only with the brain, but also with hearts surrendered to Allah. The phenomenon of thousands of Canadian scientists converting to Islam because of a single verse of the Quran is not the end of the story. In fact, it marks the beginning of a new chapter in the history of faith and science. After thousands of scientists declared their Shahada, a major shift occurred in Canadian academic thought. Universities once steeped in secularism began to open up dedicated spaces for Islamic studies. Faculties of medicine, physics, astronomy, and even philosophy established research centers called Islamic Science and Revelation Studies. Their goal was to examine the relationship between modern science and the verses of the Quran. In discussion rooms, professors who once debated the theories of evolution, relativity, or cosmology now discuss the meaning of Allah's verses. They combine research with interpretation. For them, the Quran is not merely a religious text, but a vast map that guides human research. One computer scientist, Dr. Nathaniel Hughes, a former atheist, stated that the artificial intelligence algorithms he was researching were no match for the code revealed by Allah in the Quran. He said in a seminar, "We build machines that can learn, but they are limited. The Quran, on the other hand, is a perfect divine algorithm, capable of guiding humanity from age to age without ever becoming obsolete." These words shook many students. Those who initially viewed Islam as ancient now saw it as relevant, progressive, and full of wisdom. This phenomenon also spread to the medical field. Dr. Emily Carter, who had converted to Islam, initiated the Quranic Healing Studies program, a cross-disciplinary research program examining the influence of Islamic spirituality on patient healing. The results showed that patients who were recited the Quran experienced significant improvements in recovery, not only mentally but also physically. The results of this study were published in international medical journals and received significant attention. In the field of astronomy, Professor Alexander Mackenzie guided his students to study the cosmos while examining verses about the creation of the heavens. He often told them, "If you want to know the stars, study the sky with a telescope. But if you want to know the creator of the stars, study the Quran." These words resonated deeply with Canada's young generation. Many students who initially pursued only academic degrees now pursued guidance. Even the Canadian government couldn't turn a blind eye. They saw that this phenomenon was changing the face of academia and society. Mosques were filling up, demand for Qurans had increased dramatically, and many non-Muslim educational institutions were seeking cooperation in promoting Islam. Meanwhile, the international media was still trying to find an explanation. Some said it was just a passing fad. Others considered it an emotional reaction. However, time proved that this was more than just a trend. Year after year, the number of scientists converting to Islam continued to grow. Guidance was spreading, penetrating previously hardened hearts. Most remarkably, many scientists, after converting to Islam, discovered new breakthroughs in their research. It was as if the Quran not only guided them in their faith, but also opened new avenues in science. A Canadian Muslim biotechnologist said, "Before Islam, my research was at a standstill. But after I embraced Islam, it was as if Allah opened doors to knowledge that had previously been closed. Now I research with a sincere heart, not merely for worldly ambitions, but for the good of humanity." This phenomenon is clear evidence that faith and knowledge are inseparable. Knowledge without faith will only lead to arrogance, while faith without knowledge can be fragile. When the two unite, a powerful force is born, capable of changing the world. Thousands of Canadian scientists who have now converted to Islam have not only brought change to their countries but also inspired the world. Many other countries invite them to give lectures, write books, and mentor international students. Their stories have spread throughout the world, and it all started with a single verse. One sentence is simple, but contains eternal power. We will show them our signs in the horizons and in themselves, so that it will be clear to them that the Quran is true. Qas Fusilat 53. That is the miracle of the Quran. No need for long theories, no need for layered arguments. Just one verse, and hardened hearts melt, proud minds submit, and thousands of scientists who were once away from God now prostrate themselves before Him. The wave of guidance continues to roll. From a single verse recited at a conference, an unstoppable wave of faith emerged. Thousands of Canadian scientists have now become Muslims, and from them, a new face of Islam has emerged, one filled with intelligence, humility, and the light of truth. In many mosques, we can now see rows of prayer that are different from the usual. Next to a craftsman, there is a professor. Next to an ordinary student, there is a Nobel laureate. All stand side by side, prostrating themselves to the same God, without distinction of rank. That is the beauty of Islam, a religion that unites human hearts in one sentence, La ilaha illallah. A truly moving scene unfolded at the Ottawa Grand Mosque on the eve of Ramadan. Thousands of worshippers gathered for Tarawih prayers, and in the front row were familiar faces from the academic world, scientists whose names appear in international scientific journals. But that night, they were no longer professors or doctors. They were simply servants of Allah, bowing their heads, weeping in prayer, and seeking forgiveness. A Muslim student who witnessed this couldn't hold back tears. He said to his friend, "I used to study from their books, admiring their intelligence. Now I study from their faith, and it's far greater." This phenomenon also made many non-Muslims reconsider. If even the most rational people in the world could accept Islam, why wouldn't they open their hearts to simply studying the Quran? Curiosity grew, and slowly, many hearts opened. The world was amazed. Canada, a country known for its modernity and secularism, now witnessed the miracle of the Quran subduing thousands of scientists. This phenomenon is a sign of the spiritual awakening of the modern age. And the world wondered, after Canada, which other country will Allah open the doors of His guidance to? Indeed, all of this reminds us of another statement from Allah. He it is who has sent His messenger with guidance and the religion of truth, that He may make it prevail over all religions, even though the polytheists hate it. Surah Ash-Saf 9. The story of these Canadian scientists is concrete proof. Proof that Allah's promise is true. Proof that the light of Islam will continue to shine, even in places we never expected. They are living witnesses to the miracle of the Quran. They are witnesses that true knowledge leads people to Allah, and they are witnesses that a single verse is enough to change the world. Today, thousands of Canadian scientists are no longer just researchers of science, but also researchers of faith. They are not just theorists, but also preachers. They are not only seekers of truth, but also guardians of truth. And it all began with a single verse of the Quran. My brother, this story is not just a story about scientists in Canada. It's not just a beautiful historical record to remember, but this is a mirror for all of us. If thousands of scientists who are known for their logic and skepticism finally submit to one verse of the Quran, then what reason do we, who were born as Muslims, who hear holy verses every day, who easily find mushaf in our homes, not to get closer to Allah? We are often busy with world affairs, lulled by routine, until we forget that in our hands is the same book, a book that makes thousands of scientists tremble and cry. They found it after a long journey of searching, while we have inherited it from birth. Do we truly appreciate this blessing? The phenomenon of thousands of Canadian scientists converting to Islam is a big message, that the Quran is not just to be read, but to be pondered. Just one verse can turn a hard heart around, especially if we appreciate all of its contents. Imagine, these scientists spent decades of their lives in laboratories, researching the smallest particles, exploring the vast sky, counting stars, compiling theory after theory. But when they encounter the Quran, all these theories become mere stepping stones to one conclusion: that Allah is true and Islam is the righteous path. This is a sign that the truth of Islam cannot be hidden. It is like sunlight. Despite the clouds of propaganda trying to obscure it, it continues to shine and penetrate the hearts of people. My brothers, don't wait until we are old or severely tested to open our hearts to the Quran. Don't wait until we are deeply lost before returning to seek the light. The light is right before us, in the Mushaf, the Book of Allah, that we probably pass by every day without opening. This phenomenon is a call to us all. Return to the Quran. Make it a guide for life, not just a decoration on a shelf. Read it, absorb it, and practice it. For within it are the answers to all human pursuits, both for scientists in laboratories and ordinary people in everyday life. And remember, if Allah is able to provide guidance to thousands of scientists in distant secular lands, then there is no reason for us to despair. Allah's guidance is vast and can come at any time, to anyone. May this story serve as a reminder to us all that just one verse is enough to change a heart, enough to ignite the light of faith, enough to lead someone from the darkness of doubt to the brightness of Islam. Therefore, let us pray that Allah will strengthen our hearts, make us steadfast servants, and be among those fortunate by the light of the Quran. Because ultimately, this world is temporary. Knowledge, position, and status will disappear. But what will remain eternal is our faith, good deeds, and relationship with Allah.